it really worth it to upgrade from a value resort to a moderate resort in Disney World? Bumping up to moderate can cost an additional $600 or even more dollars. And what exactly are you getting for that money? In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly what it is that makes the moderate resorts that much more expensive. So let's get into it. So one of the biggest misconceptions about value versus moderate is that a moderate resort is going to feel so much more luxurious than a value resort. And the honest truth is that it doesn't really. Unless you are jumping from a value to a deluxe resort, you're not really going to notice that many differences between the value and the moderate. So what is it that makes that moderate resort a moderate resort, and why does it cost so much more money than a value? So what you're really actually getting is slightly larger rooms. You're getting water slides at the pools. You're getting a hot tub at some of the pools. The properties around the moderate resorts usually have a little bit more landscaping, and they also feel a little bit more quiet. You're going to be able to walk around the resort and find a couple of places to be able to sit down and relax, maybe check out some views depending on which resort you're at. And they also usually have more dining options. They'll have table service restaurants as well as the quick service restaurants. So that is really what the difference is between the value and the moderate. The moderates are still set up in that same motel style that the values are, where you're entering your room from the outside. The only exception to this is the Grand Casino Tower at Coronado Springs. So a couple reasons why it might make sense for your family to upgrade. And this is kind of the same thing that I say about the deluxe resorts, where if you are planning to have a rest day, or you really like to spend time at your resort and not just be out and about all day and into the evening, you might want to upgrade to a moderate, because like I said, they do tend to have a lot more outside space where you can really sit down and relax. You can relax and go and sit down at a table service meal if you want to in your own resort. And sometimes it just feels nice to come back to a more peaceful resort after spending all day at the parks. Anytime that there's some type of like competition going on in Disney World, they will stay at the all-star resorts. So you'll have a lot of, it'll be much more loud. So if you are looking for a more relaxing time while you are there, upgrading to a moderate might be a better option. Some of the moderate resorts also offer better transportation options than the values. Like the Port Orleans, Riverside, and French Quarter have a boat over to Disney Springs. Going to the parks, you still are on the buses, but it is really nice to have that option to be able to take a nice boat ride down to Disney Springs. And also Caribbean Beach has the Skyliner, which also there are two value resorts that also have the Skyliner. So is it really worth it to upgrade to the moderate Caribbean resort if you can also have the Skyliner with a value resort? So that is something we're going to talk about as well. Coronado Springs, on the other hand, has no other transportation aside from buses. So if you wanted to upgrade to Coronado Springs, it really would be for that reason, like I said, where if you're going to spend some time at the resort and not just out and about at the parks all day, every day. Like I mentioned, two resorts, Pop Century and Art of Animation, are also on the Skyliner route, which is a huge upgrade when it comes to the value resorts. And that is upgrading from the All-Stars. The All-Star value resorts are the cheapest resorts that you're going to find inside the Disney bubble, and upgrading just a little bit will get you on the Skyliner, which I think is huge. So if you have two value resorts that can use the Skyliner, now Art of Animation is a little bit different because those are family suites, most of them, aside from the Little Mermaid section. So is it really worth it to spend that much more money to get over to Caribbean Beach Resort, which is a moderate, as opposed to staying at Pop Century, when both of them offer the same transportation options, the Skyliner and then buses everywhere else? And Caribbean Beach is an enormous resort. So you also have to deal with internal bus loops, which can really be a pain. So when you are thinking about spending that much more money, and Caribbean Beach doesn't even have elevators up to their second floor rooms. So when you're thinking about upgrading from Pop Century, which is on the Skyliner, Skyliner, to Caribbean Beach, which is on the Skyliner, and adding in those other options, it kind of makes more sense to stay over at Pop Century. And if you want to resort hop over to Caribbean Beach to go check out their restaurants and their food, you can do that. And you can also take the Skyliner to the Riviera, which is a deluxe resort, and check out their recreation stuff and their food options as well, while only having to pay for your room being at a value resort. And like I mentioned before, if you are the type of person or family or group that is going to be at the parks all day, every day, and you're really just looking for a room to come back to at the end of the night, value is definitely going to be the best option for you, because that extra money that you're saving, as opposed to spending it at a moderate resort, you could be spending in the park for souvenirs, you could have a special dinner, you could use that extra money any way you want, or just save the money and not have to worry about spending that extra money to get to the moderate resort. And while we're talking about Pop Century is a value resort on the Skyliner, and that is giving what some other moderate resorts don't have. Like Coronado Springs doesn't have any other transportation options except the buses. Port Orleans, French Quarter, and Riverside don't have any other transportation options to the parks. Yes, they have transportation to Disney Springs, but when we're talking about getting to the parks, Pop Century is a value resort and offers a little bit more than those other moderate resorts do. With all of that being said, my honest opinion is whether it's worth it to upgrade from a value to a moderate is that I, a lot of the time, don't think it's worth it. If you're already planning to stay value, that means that you are trying to budget, you want to save money, and I don't think that the perks of the moderate resorts really make it worth the extra money that you would be spending on your resort stay. I would, however, upgrade from value to moderate if it was in my budget, or if there was a really big promotion going on and you did some research and found that what you were going to pay at the value was just about what you would pay during a promotion at a moderate, I might consider upgrading at that point. But if there are no promotions and if it really is that huge of a difference in your budget, I honestly would just stick with the value resorts. And don't forget that you can always do some resort hopping to go check out these resorts and what they have to offer. You can always go to Port Orleans French Quarter and get some beignets. You can go check out some food options at Caribbean Beach, or go take a carriage ride over at Port Orleans Riverside and then take the boat over to Disney Springs. You can still experience some of these things that the resorts offer. You can go resort hopping along the Skyliner and check out the Skyliner resorts. There are ways to check out these other resorts and what they have to offer without spending the money to stay there. Now, I definitely want to hear your opinions. Would you spend the extra money to go from a value over to a moderate? If you love staying in moderates, let me know down in the comments what you love about the moderates and why you would choose the moderate over the value. I'd really love to hear what your thoughts are. And go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if it helps you out in any way. And until next time.